Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World Daily with me, John Jordan. So the news we're discussing today is the Sandbox is doing its second pre-sale for land. So land is a big thing in the world of blockchain games at the moment. It has been for the last year, really. So what is land? Land typically is a way of having permanence within a game or a kind of online environment. I guess the first project to kind of really go big on this was Decentraland, which is going live actually fairly soon at the end of February. And for the last kind of couple of years, even though the kind of project hasn't really been live to consumers at least, there's been quite a lot of trading of land. And land there is, as you'd expect, it is kind of a owning of position within this kind of broader online environment. And what's interesting there is that people have kind of started to try and work out what's the value of land depending on where it is in this online universe, and if it's kind of close to some item of interest or some other kind of cool buildings that someone's building, then the value of that land goes up. So what we've had, particularly in Decentraland, is this quite active kind of real estate market of people like buying land and then trying to sell it for more. And I wouldn't believe everything that I read, but it seems like some people at least have been spending, investing a lot of money, speculating a lot of money, however you want to describe it, have been attempting at least to make money. And I guess some of them have, and probably more of them haven't than have. And probably the ones who haven't made money aren't talking about it as much as the ones who have. Anyway, there's been a few other projects, crypto voxels, and that's been pretty popular in the last couple of weeks. And then more generally, we've had in the kind of the game space, the more traditional game space, we've had land in My Crypto Heroes. We have land now in Axie Infinity, although that's still being built out. We have land coming in Blockchain Cuties, now Blockchain Cuties Universe as part of this kind of land. And land allows these projects to have a lot more permanence and build out kind of more complex kind of features and structures around this kind of long-term ownership, not just of in-game items, but this kind of, places where you can do stuff with in-game items. And I guess as psychologically as individuals, we kind of like the idea of owning things. People generally prefer to own a house than rent a house, although there's kind of a lot of cultural variation on that, so I won't go into that too much detail. Anyway, let's get back to the Sandbox. So the Sandbox is effectively like a Minecraft on the blockchain, so you can build things in the Sandbox. It uses a voxel editor, so actually the editor's fairly complex, but you can build these items and you can animate them, and you can stick them on a marketplace and people can buy them and then put them in their own sandbox if they own the land. So the land is quite a important fundamental component to the Sandbox. Though I should point out the Sandbox isn't live yet. Still got quite a long way to go. I think it is a more complex project than people are giving it credit for. There's a lot of moving parts there, and obviously for any of these games, any blockchain games to have any underlying value, whether financial or non-financial, it needs to have a kind of large audience, and very few blockchain games have really sustained that for months, let alone years. Anyway, so what's interesting is this is the second land pre-sale that the Sandbox has done. So the pre-sale obviously means the project isn't live yet, so you're buying something, you're buying an asset that can't really be, although you can trade it straight away, the kind of value can't be used, the utility can't be used of it. So there's quite a lot of speculative activity around pre-sales. In general, pre-sales have fallen out of favor, which I think is a good thing in terms of people kind of being, an assumption being you can buy something in a pre-sale and then sell it on later for more money. That hasn't really been sustained or proven at all. In fact, most people who've bought things in pre-sales have then found that the game or the project didn't quite pan out as they expected and didn't gain an audience, and thus the thing they bought was actually worthless. I'm not saying it's going to be the case for the Sandbox. Sandbox is a kind of well-funded project from a experienced developer, but there is still obviously that uncertainty about we don't know how successful it's going to be. So, caveat: do not go piling into the Sandbox land sale in the expectation of making money. So this is the second one. So this time they're selling 5% of the total land in the Sandbox. The first time they sold 2.5%, and it sold out within 4 hours. So obviously there was quite a lot of demand for that first pre-sale. There are going to be 5 pre-sales in total. So this is only the second of 5. If you are interested in buying land in the Sandbox, the pre-sales are good because they are discounted. So I think this one's a 40% discount on the kind of price, although the price obviously is artificially created by the developer. We don't really know what the long-term price of land in the Sandbox is going to be as created by the community. Obviously it could be higher or lower. No one has any idea at the moment because the thing's not launched. This is the uncertainty with pre-sales. Anyway, What's interesting in terms of the Sandbox is how they're trying to kind of create some idea of kind of value, because the kind of the land position in the Sandbox seems fairly artificial. It's not very clear why you'd want to own one part of land in one area compared to another. So what they've done is they've partnered up with other blockchain game projects and allowed them to have land. So, for an example, in the second Sandbox sale, there is CryptoKitties have a big parcel of land. So, the idea is if you're interested in CryptoKitties, you're a fan of CryptoKitties, and you were going to buy land in the Sandbox sale, you would probably choose to have your bit of land next to CryptoKitties' bit of land. That's just something that would work. So, other projects that have land in the Sandbox second sale are Neon District, Striking, Playdap, Light Trail Rush, the Maker, people behind the DAO stablecoin, Reality Clash. So all these projects have their own little bit of land, and then they're kind of hoping the communities around those might kind of coalesce. Probably fair enough in the initial stages. Obviously, over time, this kind of stuff will probably become, I would think, less important, but who am I to know? So, I guess what is interesting, still, even at the moment we are in these very early sales. So the amount of land being sold is quite constrained. So 2.5%, now 5%. Obviously, that means there's still over 92.5% of the Sandbox is still to be sold off. So there is this kind of quite controlled mechanic, which I guess you kind of need that in pre-sale to kind of drive demand. There's no point doing a pre-sale if no one's interested, but equally you don't want to kind of over gear it to everyone thinking they're going to make tons of money when obviously there's a lot more of this land being sold. As I say, while at some point I'm sure I will probably buy some Sandbox land, I'm not sure I'm going to do it in this round, and I'm not sure I would do it until I knew a bit more about how the Sandbox project was going in the long term. But obviously other people have different risk profiles. And I think in general, the Sandbox is an interesting project in terms of how we can start to think about user generated content that's owned by a community rather than owned by kind of a centralized entity. That could enable some quite interesting different kind of dynamics. Also throws up a whole bunch of problems. so this is not a obstacle free kind of project by any means. But anyway, I guess the only other thing about pre-sales is it does give you an idea about the kind of the general view on these kind of projects. And I say the Sandbox has always been pretty highly anticipated, I think, as a kind of more complex project in the blockchain space from a well-funded, experienced team. And I think, it sounds like they were pretty surprised even that the first pre-sale sold out within 4 hours. I guess lightning doesn't always strike. The other interesting thing to think about for this pre-sale compared to the one in December is the price of ETH has gone up quite significantly over the last couple of weeks. So, one ETH was about $140. Now it's maybe $220. Does that make people more interested, more excited, more investment, more risk, prepared to take on risk because they think the whole kind of market's picking up again? Or do people go, well, it was going to cost me $130 a few weeks ago. Now it's going to cost me $220. I'll just kind of keep hodling. I don't know. We will find out in the next couple of days. Anyway, thanks for watching and thanks for listening if you're listening to the podcast. So Blockchain Gaming World Daily is just a quick dip into the kind of daily news beat of what's going on in the blockchain game space. Quite a lot going on. 2020 is a pretty busy year, so we're going to be doing quite a lot of these. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel Blockchain Gaming World, or subscribe to our podcast through your various podcast providers. If you have any comments, you can find me on Twitter at BlockchainGMG. If you have comments, but otherwise, thanks for watching and listening, and I hope to see you again soon.